Hello, how are you all doing? Sorry if it was live for a little while. I think my computer's just slowed down quite a bit. But it's a hot day here in Melbourne, and I'm sure that the computer is feeling the heat just like I am. So I wanted to jump in live and really just have a very casual conversation, but also I must preface all of this with a big disclaimer because this is very much my opinion, as with most of my talks. It's very much my opinion and from my own very limited experience of the world. And so, what I wanted to talk about today is based on the two countries that Subcinctus, my firm, is currently operating in, which is really Saudi Arabia and Australia. Wanted to draw some parallels, but also some just sort of very differing ways in which the two countries operate, and especially around the adoption of sustainable thinking and sustainable solutions. And so that's what I'm really here to talk about today and compare the two different experiences. So I've grown up in Australia for most of my life. And so, really, as I started this business, thinking, this is obviously so important, it's something that has been on my mind ever since I was young. I thought, why would people not adopt it? It's certainly important. Everybody's talking about it. LinkedIn is a perfect example of that, really, about how active the conversation is around ESG and circular economy and all of those great things. And of course, there are certainly lots of events happening as well all around the world. Aside from COP, probably the biggest and most well known, there are forums and seminars and workshops and talks every day, regularly throughout the day, in fact. And I'm seeing that coming up as well a lot all around the world. And so when you see all of this happening, you wonder, okay, well, certainly as a reflection of the heightened conversation about sustainability, there must be relevant action taking place as well. But what I've found, at least through my experience of working with businesses in Australia, is there is certainly still a lot of, you could say, hand holding in some way, a hand holding that's happening to walk them through this process of why this actually is important, because there's still a big, I guess, balancing act. And often sustainability ends up getting balanced on the far end of the spectrum, or in other words, being put on the back burner because it's not a priority for the business. And I think that's to do with the fact that it's different. It requires a lot of change thinking and change management as well to embed such a complex and dynamic solution. So businesses in Australia, at least, are certainly taking their time to come to the table. And what I've found, I guess, culturally, in Australia, we are certainly away from most part of the world. And so we sit in sort of this far corner of the world, a very beautiful corner of the world as well. And we live a very beautiful and privileged life here. And so although our lifestyles and our choices have huge impacts, we're not often seeing those impacts very quickly. Australia is a huge landmass. We're spread out. We still have a lot of space. We can really just sort of shy away from all the rubbish or the areas that are harmed by any sort of climate averse impacts. And so we don't often get to see it in our faces, close and upfront and personal. And so there is a big disconnection as well from the impact that our lives have and the direct impact on the planet. That being said, there are a lot of Australians, young, old, various ages, who want to see change and they want to use their buying power for good. And this is very much at an individual level, and many of them do have that buying power as well to be able to make those choices. So they see it as a responsibility for the businesses to give them those choices. Some, on the other hand, will take on that role internally in their homes and in their lifestyles by just naturally not buying certain things to avoid that impact, or taking containers when they go and get takeout, for example, having their own coffee cups, things like that. But most consumers want that option embedded in their product that they purchase or in their buying choices. And so businesses need to be able to step up and actually give them those choices. But in order to embed that, especially at a bigger scale where the businesses are well established and everything they're doing so far is already working, often that transition over to a sustainable option takes a lot more time. And that's what I'm seeing, at least through my experiences with Australian businesses. And I guess to layer on top of all of that, you've got the individuals with their buying choices, the businesses with having to embed these changes and provide those buying choices. But then there's the government who have to develop and establish policy and legislation that actually drives those actions and makes it a regulatory and compliance part of the system. And so that's missing at the moment, and that's certainly now coming into play. The government, at least in Australia, has the decarbonisation or policies that support decarbonisation and the investments that are supporting decarbonisation. Similarly, they're doing that with the circular economy and ESG. And so it's starting to come into play now. But that's the part that's also very much missing, which is you need all three to really be working in collaboration with each other, which is those individuals or the community, the businesses and the corporates, and then the governments. Certainly there's sub-components to that, but generally all those moving parts need to be working together in order for that entire business economy to work properly. And which is why really actually Australia has been slow to adopt sustainable change at a larger scale. There are a lot of things happening at a grassroots level, but at a larger scale, it's certainly taking its time. But what I found in my experience of being in Saudi and talking to many Saudi businesses, large and small, and I mean very large and also very small, what I'm seeing there is that, they're a very well-educated society and a very open-minded business culture. And also they really have a deep-rooted culture of respect, especially respect for their authority, which is, the government that guides them. And so because the government has said, yes, we accept climate change as a big issue, we accept that Saudi needs to diversify and open up socially and economically as a country. So we're going to put in we're going to start these conversations and then eventually put in these systems in place, which they're in the process of doing right now. But as a result, just by vocalizing their interest, that change has been taken up so quickly throughout the country, where businesses of various sizes, again, not just the big businesses, are saying, okay, look, we don't quite know what this whole sustainability thing is about, but we're happy to talk about it. We're willing to sit with you and give you the time of day. So that's what I'm seeing there is a lot less of having to get people over the line because they're already open to the ideas. And I think that just comes naturally from their business culture and probably to do with a lot of the opposing things from Australia in the fact that they are very much amongst the hub of the world. They are very much one of the biggest economies in the GCC and the Middle East. And of course, they have Dubai to reflect on or get inspiration from with the amount of traction that Dubai has had in terms of sustainability. So they're very much under, I guess, as well, the pressure and the scrutiny of that global market being a hub. And so they sort of, in some ways, don't have a choice, but also in other ways, they're saying, how can we make this work for our country and do it in a way that is valuable and value driven. So I'm seeing these very big differences in the two countries. And so what I guess, I see as similarities, because it's certainly clear what the differences are. But what I see as the similarities is that both countries have very much a growing population of youth that care a lot about this topic. And I'm not saying that, older people don't care about this, but this is just very much sitting in a big way with the youth. And, I have a 7-year-old son who talks about sustainability, and that may be in part from the conversations that I have with him, but it's not just him, it's his friends. And it comes from conversations with youth of various backgrounds and socioeconomic diversities and backgrounds and age groups and so on. And they're all going to face the impacts of these diverse impacts and events very very aggressively really in their lifetime. And, we might only face a small part of it, not reflecting on any of you, don't know how old you are, but I guess to, reflect away. And so it's really, really important, I guess now is the time for us to start kind of going a little bit off topic, but I guess that's what happens with a casual conversation, is that we have the older generation, the exposure, and the younger generation with the new ideas and the innovation and I guess the risk-taking attitudes. And it's about bringing all of this together. And similarly, I guess, to draw the parallels to why I started this conversation, how can we draw parallels and learn from each other across the geographies? And I know certainly, at least in my business, with the exposure we have to Saudi Arabia and to Australia, we get to draw those parallels and bring in the learnings in our experiences with the two different countries and the businesses in those countries. So it's really I think ultimately a very exciting time, also a very grounding time, because we need to get grounded in this journey and very much go full steam ahead, but also exciting to see the changes and exciting to see the adoption of this way of thinking and seeing it playing out in the business dynamics and the economic structure of our country. So I think it's a great time to be working in this space, and I have a lot of thoughts to share about this, but I'm sure I'll have time to do that again next week when I go live. So if you have any questions or ideas that you'd like to share or opinions, please feel free to do so. I want to thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And take care, everybody. I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. Bye.